What thoughts come to your mind when you hear the words HIV and AIDS?
Oh, a lot comes into my mind. The first thing that comes into my mind is, again, the confusion. It's the confusion in the sense that, when I first heard about AIDS, I think it was way back in maybe 89, I think. 89, yeah, I think so. In 89, immediately after I completed my school, I completed my schooling in 1992, and I was involved at an organization, an NGO, doing some volunteer work there. And I felt that it was good for me to do something as part of my community developmental work or responsibilities. And the first thing that we informed about AIDS as this creature that was coming to Africa and coming to destroy Africans. And it has been invented by Africans themselves. And all of the people from all over the West were coming into Africa to look at these monsters, were Africans who manufactured AIDS. And it was so unfortunate that AIDS at the time would be, the only disease that could be called by name and surname. And, all of us, it was very scary. At one point when it was marketed, you'd see this coffin being driven, you'd see these people wearing black gowns, and to us, black gowns is associated with death, evil and all that. And, it was that very scary kind of, movie or kind of a scene. And as such, a lot of people could not think positively about AIDS. The only thing that they would associate AIDS with is death. Immediately you are diagnosed, every person would say, okay, now the person is about to die. Even if you look healthy, everyone would wish, oh my goodness. Now, the only thing that I have to do now is to prepare myself a will for my kids in case I die anytime tomorrow. All that thing. So it came in with all this evil thinking, with all this negative energy. People felt that they would have to die tomorrow. Doctors then decided to talk about it in a much more even worse way. Scientists, being scientists, they are very conservative themselves. Their thinking is not like, broad-minded. They can't think beyond what is there in the box. So each time they look at you as this person that is going to die tomorrow. And the other thing that was even terrible is that some people that were diagnosed HIV positive, you'd find that at some point they would not even be, be pre and post counseled. The doctor would come in and just give you that information, and you would not even care whether or not what are the after effects, after being on such a kind of a test and all that. So those are some of the challenges that we encountered. Otherwise, it was not welcomed in Africa. It is still, even today, I can see that there are quite a number of people in the communities that still find it very difficult to cope with AIDS, to try and understand the rationale, to try and understand where AIDS comes from. What is AIDS? Why only AIDS has to have a surname? Why only AIDS has to have a name? Why can't we have Bacilli, TB? People are still asking themselves lots of questions. Because the other thing is that some of the signs and symptoms that we are seeing in people that are HIV positive, we can see they're existent. There are people that are still sick today with mahume, for instance, in one of the African disease. And they have more or less similar symptoms as AIDS. So now people are asking themselves, isn't it another form of Western mahume? People ask themselves lots of questions. Other people would even go to the extreme and say, maybe it's another way that God has decided to punish Africans or to punish people, because people have decided not to disobey God. People take things to their extreme. However, some of us, we believe that maybe in a way or the other, it's, we feel that maybe it's something very close to what we know of, or what a disease that we used to hear about. But then in this time, in this case, it has been brought up very badly, badly profiled. People are scared to talk about it. If you're a family that is HIV positive, that is affected, people stigmatize your family, stigmatize your kids. It's that sin. It's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing to be close to. It's not a nice thing to be in. It's quite a challenging, thing.
What did you mean when you said you found the term HIV and AIDS confusing?
It's confusing because why is it only AIDS that? Why should it be that only AIDS has a surname and name? Why can't we have other diseases being called by both surnames and names? Why only AIDS? And the other thing that is confusing about is that when you look at some of the symptoms that they talk about, for people that are HIV positive, you find that some of them, they are more related to malnutrition. People die because it's either the environment in which they live is not conducive for health of the people. Maybe as a result, we find that they'll complicate because they'll have TB, some of them, and TB will in a way or the other be connected or advance, your HIV/AIDS level. Or else maybe sometimes we find that it will be because you might have been involved in a relationship with somebody who might have one or two girlfriends. And that is, those are some of the diseases that we know of. Some of them are STIs, syphilis, gonorrhea. There are many others. So that's why we're saying, isn't it one of those, and probably maybe an advanced stage of that? And why should we be so much preoccupied about it? Why can't we take it like any other disease? Because there are diseases, for me, there are diseases that are more dangerous than AIDS. You talk about cancer. For me, it's more deadly. You talk about just stomach ache. There are severe cases of stomach aches, which definitely kills people. There are many other illnesses that we really have to be preoccupied about, like diabetes and many others. Why should we only concentrate all the efforts, the monies of Africa, the little monies that we have in Africa? Why should we all channel all that, all the energy? There are serious cases in South Africa of malnutrition. You go to areas like Eastern Cape. You go to areas like Guyana in the Limpopo province. You go to areas like, a lot of areas like Alexandra in Johannesburg. Why can't we talk about all those things? Why can't we talk about poverty? Why can't we talk about malnutrition cases? Why can't we talk about relationships? Because also relationships can kill you. The fact that you have this relationship which was going very well, and the next thing, all these things dies down. The efforts, are washed out. For me, that can cause you a serious illness. Why can't we talk about that? Why do we have to focus all our energies into just one thing? Why can't we? That's why I'm saying I'm confused. Why we have to, pop out a lot of money? Why can't we think of other things? Why can't we profile, other cases, health cases, equally the same way as HIV? So that we all take disease seriously. Because currently we are only taking HIV seriously, as though life surrounds around. Is just only HIV and AIDS. Why can't we look at other things? Why only HIV/AIDS? What is it that is what we want to achieve? Is HIV/AIDS really the only illness that we have in Africa and the world? I don't think so. The fact that AIDS being a disease, all the energies, people have gained a lot of profile out of AIDS, out of the sufferings of other people. People have decided to be champions. People have decided to be champions. These people are patients, but they are professional patients. They get paid well because they are professional in being sick. And you wonder all the time. It's, for me, you look at the socio-economic status of the people, instead of us addressing the fundamental issues, which is issues of health, issues of food, issues of education, the real fundamental issues. We have decided to take all these energies to just only one disease, and a disease that is, that has come in, into our life in a very controversial way, if I may have to say. And the other thing is that when they're saying to us we cannot use any other alternative remedies or treatments, the only treatment that we can have to use is only Western treatments. And that's where I have a problem. Why can't we, like any other disease, why can't we use, medicines that are accessible easily, medicines that are more cheaper, medicines that are more readily available? Why do we have to wait for the West to give us medicine? And these medicines are very expensive, and there's it's very confusing. It's more political than anything else. And at the same time, they say you know, the many people that suffer from this disease comes from Africa, but then Africa cannot independently think how to counter this disease. We have to rely from another country to assist us to determine our own fate and heal ourselves. You know, a country that has also failed to heal its own people, but today is trying to come back to Africa and say, we are champions, when themselves they are suffering from a similar disease. Why is it, why do we have to allow other superpowers, other countries to conquer Africa using some diseases? You know, is it, for me, it's more a political stunt than just a disease like any other disease. No, the thing is, you know, the people that came up with the concept of AIDS, they were able to conquer all of us. That's why I'm saying this is more a political stunt, because it was a group of, I guess should be a group of engineers, you know, people that have been able to think of all these things and connect them so that they look so powerful, so that they look so unconquerable, so that they look so fearful, fierceful. You know, when you think of the word AIDS, it is as though it's this new thing that has just come in, that is more fashionable in disease terms. You know, it becomes even more scary. So that's why I'm saying it's an old disease. Some of us, we believe that people were sick with genital ulcers before, people were sick with gonorrhea, people were sick with syphilis, people were sick with, you know, people would sweat at night because of different illnesses. People would have their immune system compromised purely because you do not have good nutrition, you know, to assist, you know, development as a person. You know, you'd get sick of many diseases, but now all those diseases have been brought together into this one club called AIDS. And now this, we are told that, you know, because long ago you would be able, if you are sick with, for instance, if you are sick with TB or persistent cough, you'd be able to get medicines, either traditional medicine or whatever the medicine. You'll drink that medicine and the cough will run out of you or will go off you. But now we are told that it can't go off you. You know, it's like there's some engineering of some sort that has gone into making sure that this conglomerate of diseases, they end up killing you. I don't know what has happened. And also the other thing that is a challenge is also the fact that as Africans, we no longer control the agricultural industry. It is now controlled by the West. Now, the very same chemicals that are used as fertilizers, also, it leaves a lot to be desired there. We do not know what sort of chemicals are put into our own soil. We used to have good soil and very good, you know, nutritional, very good fertile soil. That way we would not even go for fertilizers, Western fertilizers and all that. We would only use our own organic fertilizers, you know. But now we have so much borrowed, all that is West, all that has failed in the Western countries, we have taken all that into us. And of course, because these are new things, we need to adapt. They come in with a lot of problems themselves. So as a result, as a society, as Africans, we would still have to battle to live independently. We'll have to battle to live outside the politics of living itself. Is because what is killing us as Africans is just the political thing. The fact that we are capable as Africans, the fact that we are capable but do not have land. We are capable but we do not have the economic power. But yet we say we are democratic. You know, those little things, all of them put together, they challenge you as a person. What then do you do? Yes, you are saying you are democratic, you are independent, you are free now, but then isn't it a challenge that you cannot do anything else unless you go to somewhere where you are going to request, where somebody will have to control and determine your own fate. So it's quite a challenge. I don't know how to really say it, but it's a problem. The conglomerates of disease, the putting together of this disease and manufacturing it such that it looks so huge and so challenging, that's it's also a political stand to me. That, because I don't understand where have these medicines that used to be very good for treating you know, the many things, for treating your ulcers, for treating your diabetes, for treating these many other, what has happened to those things? Why is traditional medicine being shut down? Why is traditional medicine not being promoted equally the same way as any other medicines? Of course, the fact that traditional medicine has not been promoted, we know it's a political stunt. We know that the West would always want to see their own medicine being prominent than any other form of medicine. So for me, it still goes back to the politics of medicine. South African politics is largely, you know, controlled by external forces, you know, and the external forces, amongst others, will be the conglomerates. It will be your pharmaceutical companies. It will be like your arms deals. It will be like, I mean, it will be controlled by your, there's many, there are quite a number of them. You know, your security things, and that on its own, by virtue, they challenge the development, they challenge the health of the people, they challenge independence of South Africa. So as a result, South Africa cannot be able to say anything, because whatever that it says, it has to be able to say it within the confines of another country somewhere, or the confines of another establishment. And if this establishment says, no, South Africa, you're saying it wrong, and once you continue to say this, we are going to sanction you there, obviously South Africa will have to abide. We'll have to abide and make sure that they no longer say that. And that would mean that we are compromising our autonomy. So that's what we are realizing in South Africa. There are good minds in South Africa. There are good people. There are very good politicians, such as President Thabo Mbeki, who is one person that has said, no. Whether it's religion, this AIDS, but we want to challenge this that they call religion, this thing that they call AIDS, because we do not understand what is it in it that makes it unchallengeable. But then now the scientists coming together themselves forcefully with also the funders, which are the conglomerates, you know, which are the pharmaceutical companies, the cartel, they make it very difficult for us to do it independently. My thinking has always been that once you put so much energy, so much concentration on one thing, eventually you are legitimizing that thing. You are saying it is real, it is there, it is happening. So if you don't pay so much attention to it and say it's one of the things that is like any other disease, and it can be challenged, and it can listen to the challenges, then I mean you would be able to. But now if you have to put all the monies, if you have to put all the efforts to just only one disease, I mean, it's like it's one of the religions. I mean, it's religion. You can't question. When you question AIDS, it's like you are touching on the pockets of the pharmaceutical cartel. It's like you are touching on the pockets of those that believes they are the most, you know, outspoken scientists of the world. It's like, you know, it's like you're talking to the media itself. You know, once you criticize, you know, science, once you become critical of AIDS, it's like you are being critical of the media. You are being critical of all these powers that may be. So that's why there's quite a lot of cloud. There's a cloud when you talk about AIDS. People do not want to talk much about it. They would prefer to be quiet. Not because they don't know, not because they don't have their own thinking independent of what the media always tells them, of what these other people always tell them. But it's because they feel, even if we can talk, it doesn't make much sense, because there's no one that is there to listen to us. The West seems to forget that for thousands of years, people used to live without Western conventional medicines. People were using traditional medicine, African medicine, which was accessible, which was cheaper, which was more available to them. But then now, the West suddenly, the West then thinks that they are the only provider for treatment. They are the only savior for Africa. Regardless that the statistics, you know, and reports from WHO, the World Health Organization, says about 75 to 80% of the general public relies even today on traditional forms of healing. They decide to shun that. Why is it so? It's because they feel that traditional medicine, if it's given equal status and development, if traditional medicine is given enough development and being valued, their business is going to fade. So it's more an economic struggle as opposed to a life and health struggle. So that's the only challenge. Because you ask yourself why the treatment action campaign does not, if they're saying, because their preoccupation is on research. We are saying yes, though it's their form of research, understanding who TAC is anyway. Yes, it is research. Traditional medicine, in their own thinking, it is not researched. We are saying yes, we understand that part. But then themselves getting millions and millions of monies from whosoever their funders are. Why isn't it that they take that money, develop traditional medicine, so that traditional medicine, being non-toxic, being effective, can assist in redeeming Africa from the disease that it has today? Why can't they give value to traditional medicine? Why should they always bombard and ask questions that they do not even, that they know for a fact that they do have answers for, but decides and choose not to assist the poor people of Africa? Why should people be put on drugs, antiretrovirals for the rest of your life? It's even worse than a business contract to this. I don't know what kind of, people are being channeled and reduced. Life is being reduced to just a business contract. Because now if I have to go on a antiretroviral treatment, I have to know that that's a contract for life. And indeed, it's a business contract, because it's a contract that goes with money, whether I pay the money or government pays the money, but it is business. So I'm taking my soul and putting it somewhere on the block so that government can take me as a liability and use my body to continue assist somebody else to make money. We are saying there is a better alternative, and that is in traditional medicine. It's an alternative that is effective. It's an alternative that is safe. It's also an alternative that is readily available. Let us use this alternative. It is a it has proven for years that it's a very good alternative. And in fact, what is Western medicine today has all been taken, 80% of it has been taken from traditional medicine. The only thing is just to continue develop it such that it rise above all else. You hear today even communists, which is very, very pathetic. You hear today communists, hardcore communists, saying to you, but then why can't we use antiretrovirals? Hello. This is not communism that we know about. This is not the communists that we know about. They've even sold out communism. Because you cannot say, firstly, you have to acknowledge and realize, the assets, whatever that you have around you, be able to utilize it such that you feel that you have done it, to your utmost, and there's nothing else. Then that is when you can go external and request for other, interventions. Even the very hardcore communists have not done anything today to assist in developing traditional medicine, but they are busy criticizing. Because they hear the West criticizing traditional medicine, they don't even want to look into traditional medicine because they believe that they are more learned. And remember that people, when you talk about communism, it's the masses, it's the general, the ordinary people in the ground that are that are still holding on to the fundamentals of communism, the principles of communism. Now, those people, they know exactly about the realities of life. They know exactly about which kind of medicines, if they happen to have any problem, that they use for their own problems. And in most cases, those people, they use traditional medicine. Now, when you ask yourself, what are these communists, the town communists, what are they talking about when they say traditional medicine away and let's have antiretrovirals and all that? I'm not saying that people should not have the right to choose. Of course, freedom means you have the right to choice. But then people should not be denied should not be denied all information on treatment. People should be given Western medicine information. People should have to be given traditional medicine information. It is up to the individual to select which information is more relevant to him. But then we should not always be bombarded, because once one thing is told to us several times, obviously we are being channeled to believe that thing. when in most cases it is not necessarily true. So we are saying even the communists should understand that they will never be respected by the ordinary masses unless they come back to their senses and understand and acknowledge what Africa has, the potential and heritage that we have in Africa. And amongst other heritages, we have this traditional medicine as a heritage. We need to invest in this traditional medicine. We need to develop it and give value to it so that at least it competes with any other form of healing.
Have people been told in these villages that they're HIV positive or they have AIDS without actually being tested?
It depends. You know, we are still faced with lots of challenges, social challenges now. People are poor. If people are poor, if I'm poor, obviously I'll react and do things differently from somebody who's able to afford life. You know, there are quite a number of things that I would not do that somebody that is normal would be able. My meaning of normal in this case would be somebody who has access to all the resources that you can ever imagine, you know. Now, a nurse, firstly, you should understand and be able to analyze Africa. Africa is challenged by the wars. We have been ravished by the wars in Africa, such that nurses themselves have grown out of patience. Nurses themselves are no longer, you know, your true soldier nurses, your true nurses that would assist you in serious need, in serious times of need. You know, we still are faced with a lot of struggles where nurses themselves are not, you know, qualified enough to understand the politics of African problems, the politics of African people, the fact that they need to understand where we come from, the history of Africans, before they can actually heal you. So that's the other problem that I'm seeing, that you find that sometimes when I come and present symptoms, for instance, such as being slim, not being healthy because I do not have enough food because I'm poor, you know, having so many babies because I do not have access to clinical, you know, facilities, for instance, for family planning, you know, because I have my husband who's promiscuous, you know, and for many other things that I'm presenting a lot of symptoms on me. That soon, you know, a nurse would soon say, hey, you know, even these people that are HIV positive, manage, they're boring us. These people, they come in every day with lots of kids. I would hear that this person is talking to me. But then you'd choose not to respond to all those things because anyway, there's nothing you can do because a nurse is an authoritative somebody. You wouldn't like to bother that person because obviously you know that you have come to that clinic because you need assistance from that nurse. And immediately you respond in another way, the nurse will choose not to assist you. Regardless that it is a public hospital or a public clinic, but she will choose not to because she's in authority at the time. So I'm saying that there are cases whereby people are labeled as HIV positive when you have not tested, by even the health officials. You know, there are other cases whereby because of your socio-economic status, people, when they look at you, they say you are HIV positive because you do not, because of the way in which you look. You are too ugly because you cannot afford to make yourself look beautiful and nicer and look younger. And secondly, because of of the fact that you do not have food, you do not have good nutrition and all this, you are unemployed and all those, you know, all those things brought together. And at the end of the day, you'll find that even neighbors say, look at her, she's now positive. They don't even know your health status, whether you're positive or negative, they don't even know. But then they just choose to label you because when they look at you, they look at you, you know, with those eyes that are hunting for somebody who's HIV positive, whom maybe they might have not even seen in reality. But because when they see you and hear from the radio, they then think, this is what the radio talks about. This is what the television talks about. The television has created people to be enemies of neighbors. It just created people to be enemies of themselves. So we no longer love each other. You know, when I see you, instead of me assisting you, I'll just laugh at you and I'll gossip about you. instead of thinking of you as a human being first and foremost, thinking of you as a person that is challenged, and make sure that I lend a hand to you. But instead, I'll laugh about your situation. So that's the kind of situation and lifestyle that we are embodied in today. It's not a nice life. People in Africa are dying because they're poor. People in Africa, they're dying because they're not able to afford simple life. They're not able to, you die because you've got so much stress. Your husband does not work. As a result, there's no source of income, there's no food, there's nothing. Secondly, you die because probably your kids have grown up, and it's so unfortunate that today when you go to school and send your kids to school, there's this economic struggle amongst the children themselves. You know, they'll have to go for matric dances, which you do not know the actual reason for matric dances. You know, they'll have to go for matric dances, they'll have to look nice, they'll have to have boyfriends, they'll have to have cell phones. You know, it's too economical. And as such, the pressures that these children are getting from their own peers, they exert it directly to their parents. Parents who are not able to afford that kind of a lifestyle. Parents who are unemployed, all of them. You know, maybe they have a single parent who is a mother with 4 kids or 7 kids, who's also unemployed. You know, so all that you know, that collection of problems, they can cause one person to die. In fact, even long ago, people used to die because of these multiple problems, these multiple, you know, challenges that they had, which were grouped into some sort of a syndrome, a syndromic kind of a disease. You know, I mean, that's what I think is killing Africans. If the socio-economic status of Africans can be challenged and made better, much more better, I suppose this thing called AIDS could certainly be reduced. But in as far as things are going today, I doubt if it will be, you know, if Africans will be redeemed from AIDS anytime soon. The one thing that I know is happening is that the West would like to, they're working very hard to try and find new innovations, new ways to keep Africans dependent on them. They would like to keep us for as long as we live. For them, they drive more pleasure if they keep us as though we are a project. They want to project us in as much as they would wish for a long time. Of course, if they say we are full of AIDS, for them it makes more sense, because it will mean they'll have to continue manufacture more money from our, you know, pain in the name of AIDS. So because AIDS is a brand name. You know, once you say AIDS, you know, some people are getting even much more dignity, much more honor, because they've just called themselves AIDS activists. You know, it's you know, whereas long ago, when they would say to you, Pephsile is sick with diabetes, I would fight tooth and nail with the support of my family to go off that kind of an illness. But today, people use illnesses for political reasons and economic reasons. So it's no longer, people are no longer genuine. It's more money making. It's more, you know, it has a lot to do with prestige. You know, who I am. You know, you don't know who I am. I'm so and so who's HIV positive. You know, it's like they derive lots of pleasure from talking about an illness. They don't understand that illnesses, like any other things, should be challenged. They think that you have to stay sick, you know. They don't think that you have to challenge illness and become better off from the illness, and, you know. So now the only problem that the US has, I mean the Western world's health has, is that they want to see Africa being, you know, being underdeveloped. They want to see Africa being challenged by diseases. They want to see Africa being challenged by poverty. They want to see Africa having all the sorts of very funny, ugly things, so that they can continue to control over Africa. through either a form of donation, where we definitely rely on them for grants, perpetual, requests for grants, so that we do not enjoy our own autonomy. So I think it's a lot of, it's more a political thing, like I said before. I don't think it's more genuine. I think much as, yes, people are sick, of course, that we cannot hide from. But then I feel people are sick from different reasons. They are sick from stresses of poverty. Let us redeem people from poverty. Let us make sure that we don't make people sick such that they have to sleep in hospitals. Sick because they can't be employed. Sick because of many things, because of not good food, because of genetically modified foods. That causes us a lot of sicknesses. Why can't we look into that and see how we can better our lives through making sure that we generate a better quality sort of food, So I think through all those, brought together, let us have Africa that is able to farm. Let us have more land to Africans. Because through land, you can be able to, you can be called wealthy. You are very rich with land, with your cattle, with your all else, like it used to happen. We had diseases, but we didn't so much focus on those diseases even long time ago, because we know that we had all our land, we had the cattle that we had. So, you'd look at my cattle and say, no, it's fine. Life is going on. But now the thing is, we do not have all of those things. So we no longer are in control. Instead, we are being controlled gradually. In South Africa, we are one of the very, very blessed countries. We're one of the very blessed country in the world. We have a Minister of Health who is Dr. Manto Tshabalala Msimang, a minister that is able to see beyond, what is presented to her. A minister that is able to say, yes, I understand there is AIDS, but I still feel that other alternative treatments still can play a major role in the fight against any forms of disease. So for me, that is very powerful. The only thing that she needs a lot of support. And of course, and understand that, the West and its own brothers and stooges in Africa, they do not like that, because they want to make sure that Africa is colonized. And that is why today she's so much under pressure, because they want to see her out of ministry. They want to make sure that they block all the policies, the good policies, national policies that are there and formulated to counter all other negative actions from the West. Like, for instance, actions whereby traditional medicine, continues to be undermined. Manto Tshabalala Msimang has put together an act together with cabinet, an act which is called the Traditional Health Practitioners Act, which is aimed at challenging and ensuring that it regulates the practice of traditional health practitioners in South Africa. And for me, that is very powerful, because for a long time we've been wanting to see a minister that is going to champion that part of a struggle. Now, because she has done that, the Western world, which is the pharma cartel, then said, oh, if now traditional healers are going to give an equal status as us, indeed, we are going to vanish from the market. So now it's more an economic struggle that is being waged now. And it's so unfortunate that even South African government, particularly led by the ANC, is compromised and is hooked into that kind of a quagmire, of words and of politics. Because we find that sometimes there's even infights within the seniorest political officials, political officers of the ANC, which are supposed to be assisting in leading and supporting each other. But instead they are just, they are embarked in some kind of a war of words. So but then of course the system, which is the pharmaceutical cartel, is very happy when they see our own comrades being involved in such a kind of a war, because that is now what they think is that they've achieved at least, because they want to see Africa being divided. And it's so unfortunate, because it's compromising on the quality of African traditional medicine and African life. So that there are some of the challenges that we are faced with today. There is this thing that is called the Presidential
PEPFAR.
Emergency Program, called PEPFAR. It has been funded to Medunsa University in KwaZulu-Natal, which is led by Professor Qaleni. It is a joke. It is a joke because, one, when President George Bush initiated that project, it's a joke how President Bush himself is using that project to undermine further Africans. He is saying he wants to teach Africans on how to have sex. It's a joke. Two, he is saying he wants to assist Africans to, to reduce HIV/AIDS cases through certain lifestyles that he's introducing. Okay, his own way, his own manufacturing of lifestyles, which is borrowed, all of that is borrowed from the West and coming to Africa, immediately coming to Africa. The third one is that he's saying he wants to make sure that there's prevention. He wants to make sure that there's treatment. He does not speak so much of prevention. He wants to make sure that there's a lot of treatment programs that are put into Africa. You look at those treatment programs in his own terms, it is all Western medicine. He is even going to an extent whereby he's training traditional health practitioners in KwaZulu-Natal through the Pephsile program led by Professor Qaleni to train traditional healers to be volunteers in that programs. What it means that traditional healers should stop being professional health practitioners and instead be given a reduced status where they become volunteers of a Pephsile program by Bush. That on its own tells you it's a politics. Hello, it is political. Okay. Two, because obviously you know who funds Bush. Obviously it's your pharmaceutical companies. It's your arms deal. It's all those that brought him to power. And the second to that is that he's saying he wants to teach Africans. Himself is in the West, but he's saying he's an engineer of African problems. It's a misconception. He will never get that right because he doesn't know who we are. He doesn't even respect the fact that we have our own solutions to our own problems. He thinks that he can borrow his own ways and bring them to the South. And that will not work. And that is why even the Pephsile program in KwaZulu-Natal is not working. It is not working because they can say they are training traditional healers, but unfortunately, the same traditional healers, they are not going to be able to administer antiretrovirals. The very same antiretrovirals that some of the traditional healers have been part of that program, they've been given to communities. Communities are coming back complaining with severe side effects. The traditional healers are saying we cannot afford to continue with this thing. It is too much. We have not been trained on Western ways of healing. So as a result, we don't even know some of the names, and traditional healers, most of them who are involved in the program, they can't even read and write. Now you are saying to that traditional healer you should administer a Western program. At the same time, you are saying traditional healers are uneducated, they are this, you label them, but then you want them to assist you to accomplish an African and a Western program. It's very crazy. So it's all it's the power thing. They want to make sure that they remain powerful. They want to make sure that they tremble. They tremble on Africans, on the poor healers, so that they can continue to hegemonize, to control the healing sphere. And we need to stop them from doing that, because traditional healers have been trained and are professional in traditional health, not in Western health. They should only refer. Let us make sure that if Bush has money enough that he does not know how to spend it, he should make sure that he assists. We will tell him what we want as healers in Africa. We'll tell him what we want in South Africa. We'll tell him that money should be channeled towards the research of traditional medicine. Why doesn't he want our medicine to be researched? And we want to put in place systems. In South Africa, we've got a traditional medicine directorate, which is connected to the National Reference Center on Traditional Medicine. That center, its core function is to make sure that it assists in the research of traditional medicine, so that traditional medicine is given value in its own country of origin. Why can't Bush fund that program? If he's really preoccupied about health of Africa, if he's really preoccupied about, supporting people of Africa, he cannot just take solutions what he calls his own solutions, a version of solutions into Africa. He needs to know and understand that we are humans, and we've got our own independence, and we want to continue to be independent, even in healing. Like I mentioned earlier on, that AIDS is such a trademark. AIDS is one thing that you'd never go wrong if you have to market. It is so unfortunate that even very good doctors, what we used to have as very good doctors, have decided to be more stereotyped, to be more conservative, and only think that the only disease today that is ravaging Africa and South Africa is just only AIDS. I wish we could have a new generation of doctors which are going to think beyond AIDS. That we still have diabetes, by the way. It is terrible. That we still have, cases whereby if children are not well breastfed, they become even more sick. They become even more dull at school. Doctors that are going to tell us about basic lifestyle, health lifestyle, where, cases of malnutrition. People are dying of malnutrition. Cases of poor hygiene. There are a lot of things. The importance of planting trees, around us. We need doctors that are going to assist, but it should be a new, generation. It should be more or less like a revolution that we need to start. A revolution of quality, good doctors that are going to assist in assisting Africa to go out of disease. Doctors that are going to see things beyond what is presented by the media and other advocates of Western health, Western medicines like antiretrovirals and all these other things. So we lack that, because each time you have to struggle, you have to go and borrow more money from people so that you live a better lifestyle according to media and according to these other advocates, where you'll have to live a lifestyle like, for instance, you'll have to buy your cornflakes. Even those cornflakes, you don't even know what is in those cornflakes, but you have to eat them because you will be seen as fashionable. You will have to go again into debt because you will have to look nicer, dress in beautiful, fashionable clothes, because if you don't, you would look ugly, older, and as such you'll be associated with somebody who's more sickly and not fashionable. You'll have to live a lifestyle beyond your own means as a person. And that is a problem. That is why I'm saying people are going the extreme route because they have to please doctors, because they have to please the media. We are no longer living a normal lifestyle. We now have to live a life that is more borrowed from other cultures, because we'll have to make that other culture to be more happy and comfortable about us. We no longer ourselves. So I wish we could go back and become the real us.
How do you feel about AIDS medication? Antiretroviral therapy?
I don't think I should have to say AIDS medication, because when you talk about AIDS medication, you are also talking about our own medication. Because I believe that traditional medicine can also be administered for AIDS-related cases. But when I have to speak specifically about antiretrovirals, I think antiretrovirals they're terrible. The current regime, the current kind of antiretrovirals that are administered to people that are HIV positive are bad. I'm saying this because I've seen a lot of some of the patients who came to us complaining that before they took this medication, they never had pimples, but immediately after they were on this medication, they developed pimples on the skin. Second to that is that some of them, they'll say to you that, immediately after I took antiretrovirals, it's either I had to use my crutches, or some of them have to be on wheelchair because they could not, the joints were too painful, they could not walk anymore. And then some of them, they'll tell you that, because I was on this medication, I'm starting to vomit, continuously vomit. So I can't take any food anymore because medicine is treating me very badly. They're complaining of a lot of things. Some of these people are complaining of kidney failures. Some of these people are complaining of shortened breath. It's a lot of things that these people are complaining about, and that makes me not to approve of antiretrovirals, unless somebody convinces me and says this is a better regimen, this is a better kind of antiretrovirals that we have manufactured. I don't know who they are going to test it on, because the other thing with antiretrovirals is that when you look into their own box, their original box, it does not say it is recommendable for AIDS. It said people can use it at their own risk. So obviously that tells me that even the people that manufactured it, they were not sure if they could be administered for people that are HIV positive. So it's still a mystery, but it's a mystery that cannot be openly discussed, because people have treated this kind of thing, this AIDS thing, as though it's a Bible, as though it's religion. That is why there's a lot of controversy. We are seated back in our homes, we interrogate about these things, but then we feel that we cannot be part of a public debate about it, because we feel it's useless for us to debate and discuss it. Because after all, people become very emotional when they discuss these things of AIDS, because they are very professional in it. They are very professional in marketing it, such that they become very emotional and start labeling. They become very personal, instead of them looking at the real issues around this AIDS thing. They become to attack you, the individual. So that's why people have decided, no, I can't be arguing with these people, because these are just promoters. That's where the problem is. We do not have the right forum, and we have not even created ourselves that forum, because I don't think anybody can stop us from discussing about these things openly. It's a matter of us taking up the lead and saying, we are tired of you marketers, we want to take this lead, and we cannot be ruled by you anymore. So we need to soldier on, we need to stand firm, the same way we stood firm against apartheid. We need to stand firm and say, no, we are tired now, we feel it's enough, and we now want to do things. But I like what South Africans are doing. South Africans are saying, we cannot be told by just individuals about our own, history of health. We rather take things on our hands, even if government can say things on radio, even if people can use television, even people can owl every morning and day, but we will choose whether to go to the hospitals or not to go there. And people, in most cases, they are coming to traditional health practitioners. And we are saying to them, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let us see what we can do for you. And when we administer to them alternative treatments, we see them improve. And the next thing, they go for testing. The doctor, when he checks his CD4 count, he says, oh, your CD4 count is so much, it has been reduced. I mean, your viral load has been reduced, your CD4 count has increased. Then the doctor would assume it's antiretrovirus, whereas people are taking traditional medicine. And to us, that's good. And the patient comes back to us and say, look, I've been given this certificate and it tells me that my copies, my CD4 count has so much increased and my viral load is reduced now, because immediately after I started using traditional medicine. For us, it's good, because we want to see people healthy. We are not after profits. We're after the realities, which is health of the people.
Does any of the money for AIDS medication that come into this country go towards traditional healing?
No, not at all. I mean, that's not the aim of the funders. The funders would not even like that to happen. The funders would like to see a lot of people in South Africa using conventional drugs, so that at least they are because they want to be guaranteed that they continue to generate more money. Then the more they generate more money, the more they'll continue to fund, because they know that every day you'll be sick from this, you'll be sick to that. I mean, it's like it's a sickness after the other. So the more you are sick, the more they'll be able to generate more money. So at least, they won't do anything to develop traditional medicine. If they feel that I'm lying, it's fine. I'm saying yes, I'm using these statements purposely because I want to challenge them, because that's how I think about it. If they think I'm wrong, it's fine. Let them challenge us by investing in traditional medicine. The one thing that, the one thing that one is realizing is that obviously I'm worried in the manner in which some of these messages are put together by the promoters of the Western medicines. I'm very, very worried. I'm worried because they are giving the impression that it's it and all. It's only drugs, and if you don't take drugs tomorrow, you are going to wake up dead the following morning. We don't want to scare people up and force people and force people to use treatments and medicines that they do not necessarily wish to use. I feel I would be more happy with a situation whereby, particularly the treatment action campaign, being patients, I would be more happy with them, if they understand first that a person has his or her own right to choice. Secondly, people have a right to correct information without being persuaded by any group. So if they could understand some of these rights, I can certainly appreciate. Because I feel that people go into antiretrovirals. Not necessarily that I feel, but I've also observed that people go into antiretrovirals because there is this PR stunt that is around the antiretrovirals. And it's not supposed to work like that. It's about people's life. People have a right to choice. It's about freedom. When we waged freedom against apartheid, we did not wage it because, we wanted other people to dominate over others. No, we were waging because all of us, as equal partners, we're supposed to be respected as that, whether rich or poor. So I'm worried that, with the treatment, the drugs particularly, people are given drugs not because they are told correctly what are the aftermaths of those drugs. I'll be more comfortable in a situation where people are told the exact truth about what happens thereof. If we could look into that, I can certainly appreciate.
What is your opinion on the debate over HIV causing AIDS?
My opinion is that there's more to talk about. There's more for those people that are experts. I'll call them experts because, of course, they've sat down to look into why they need to say we are HIV positive instead of giving this an ordinary name like diabetes. Why they decided to make that collection of disease in a form of a syndrome, I do not understand. Why they were not satisfied that a person would be sick with TB, the other one would be sick with that. Why do they want to bring all these diseases together? So I think there's more that these people need to explain. I'll be more happy if the West could be more flexible and stop being conservative and understand that people, unlike previously, people have minds, they are able to think. People wants to continue to be independent. If they can just know and acknowledge that, I'm fine. Because if they know that, then they would open up forums where we'll discuss openly about these things. There are quite a lot of problems. There are quite a lot of challenges that we feel we need to sit down and engage on. But unfortunately, the circumstances are such that we cannot freely engage. Because once you freely engage, you are labeled a dissident. Once you freely engage, you are labeled denialist. Once you freely engage, you are labeled barbaric and traditional healing. Once you are labeled all these sorts of things, but you are not given the correct answers. Because when we engage, it's not because we engage because we want to undermine, but we engage because we feel there's more that we want to probe from people's thinking. We want to understand exactly why AIDS, why AIDS HIV, why HIV AIDS, why not HIV and AIDS. There's quite a lot. It's a controversy that we would want to unpack, but it's so unfortunate that even the world over is not able to give particularly traditional health practitioners the platform where we can air out. And secondly, because we believe that health should be given back to the people. The people should be able to manage their own health. But currently what's happening, the health of all people in our communities is in the hands of a few which are scientists, a few which have the economic power. We want to take back the health of the people into the community. We want people in the community to decide their fate, not any other person to decide for them, because the socioeconomic status of that person could be different from the reality of the people in the ground. So that's where the battle is. It's a battle of ownership. Who owns what? Who owns AIDS? If we own AIDS, why then can't we, talk about, why can't we determine our own fate if we are the people that are sick of AIDS? Why should we be sick of AIDS, but then our life being determined by somebody somewhere else? Those are some of the questions that we have. I believe this is the beginning of a war. It is a war to reclaim our health. It calls upon all of us, wherever we are, to stand up and fight aggressively to ensure that we regain our true sense of being us. We regain our strength and make sure that we combat all forms of colonialism, whether it's disease kind of colonialism, whether it's economic colonialism, whatever the forms. I believe that if we come back together, if we are a nation that asks questions, if we are a nation that is not fearful, if we are a nation that stands by each other, if we are a very strong nation in terms of supporting each other, diseases are not a problem. The only important thing that we need to do is that we need to come up with ways in which we can assist in supporting each other so that Africa becomes really free. Currently, we are not free. We look at there's another war that we need to wage. It's a war of health. So currently, we are still stuck with this war, in this war. So if we could be able to put together all the little resources that we have, particularly in Africa, I guess we could be fighting a better war.
Some people are very fortunate that they don't have these side effects.
Diabetes and many others. Why should we only concentrate all the efforts, the monies of Africa, the little monies that we have in Africa? Why should we all channel all that, all the energy? There are cases, serious cases in South Africa of malnutrition. You go to areas like Eastern Cape. You go to areas like Guyana in the Limpopo province. You go to areas like, a lot of areas like Alexandra in Johannesburg. Why can't we talk about all those things? Why can't we talk about poverty? Why can't we talk about malnutrition cases? Why can't we talk about relationships? Because also relationships can kill you. The fact that you have this relationship which was going very well and the next thing, all these things dies down. The efforts, are washed out. For me, that can cause you a serious illness. Why can't we talk about that? Why do we have to focus all our energies into just one thing? Why can't we? That's why I'm saying I'm confused. Why we have to, pop out a lot of money? Why can't we think of other things? Why can't we profile, other cases, health cases, equally the same way as HIV, so that we all take disease seriously? Because currently we are only taking HIV seriously, as though life surrounds around. Is just only HIV and AIDS. Why can't we look at other things? Why only HIV/AIDS? What is it that is what we want to achieve? Is HIV/AIDS really the only illness that we have in Africa and the world? I don't think so. The fact that AIDS being a disease, all the energies, people have gained a lot of profile out of AIDS, out of the sufferings of other people. I find it very difficult to cope with AIDS, to try and understand the rationale, to try and understand where AIDS comes from. What is AIDS? Why only AIDS has to have a name? Why only AIDS has to have a name? Why can't we have bacilli, TB? People are still asking themselves lots of questions. Because the other things that some of the signs and symptoms that we are seeing in people that are HIV positive, we can see they're existent. There are people that are still sick today with mahume, for instance, in one of the African disease. And they have more or less similar symptoms as AIDS. So now people are asking themselves, isn't it another form of Western Mahume? People ask themselves lots of questions. Other people would even go to the extreme and say, maybe it's another way that God has decided to, decided to punish Africans or to punish people, because people have decided not to disobey God. People take things to their extreme. However, some of us, we believe that maybe in a way or the other, it's, we feel that maybe it's something very close to what we know of, or what a disease that we used to have, we used to hear about. But then in this time, in this case, it has been brought up very badly, badly profiled. People are scared to talk about it. If you're a family that is HIV positive, that is affected, people stigmatize your family, stigmatize your kids. It's that sin. It's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing. It's not a nice thing to be close to. It's not a nice thing to be in. It's quite a challenging, thing.
What did you mean when you said you found the term HIV and AIDS confusing? What thoughts come to your mind when you hear the words HIV and AIDS?
Oh, a lot comes into my mind. The first thing that comes into my mind is, again, the confusion. It's the confusion in the sense that, when I first heard about AIDS, I think it was way back in 89, I think. 89, yeah, I think so. In 89, immediately after I completed my school, I completed my schooling in 1992. And I was involved at an organization, an NGO, doing some volunteer work there. And I felt that it was good for me to do something as part of my community developmental work or responsibilities. And the first thing that we informed about AIDS as this creature that was coming to Africa and coming to destroy Africans. And it has been invented by Africans themselves. And all of the people from all over the West were coming into Africa to look at this, to look at these monsters were Africans who manufactured AIDS. And it was so unfortunate that AIDS at the time would be, the only disease that could be called by name and surname. And, all of us, it was very scary. At one point when it was marketed, you would see this coffin being driven, you would see this. It's confusing because why is it only AIDS that, why should it be that only AIDS has a surname and name? Why can't we have other diseases being called by both surnames and names? Why only AIDS? And the other thing that is confusing about is that when you look at some of the symptoms that they talk about, for people that are HIV positive, you find that some of them, they are more related to malnutrition. People die because it's either the environment in which they live is not conducive for health of the people. Maybe as a result, we find that they'll complicate because they'll have TB, some of them, and TB will in a way or the other be connected or advance, your HIV/AIDS level. Or else maybe sometimes we find that it will be because you might have been involved in a relationship with somebody who might have one or two girlfriends. And that is, those are some of the diseases that we know of. Some of them are STIs, syphilis, gonorrhea. There are many others. So that's why we're saying, isn't it one of those, and probably maybe an advanced stage of that? And why should we be so much preoccupied about it? Why can't we take it like any other disease? Because there are diseases, for me, there are diseases that are more dangerous than AIDS. You talk about cancer. For me, it's more deadly. You talk about just stomach ache. There are severe cases of stomach aches, which definitely kills people. There are many other illnesses that we really have to be preoccupied about, like people wearing black gowns, and to us black gowns is associated with death, evil and all that. And it was that very scary kind of movie or kind of a scene, and as such a lot of people could not could not think positive, positively about AIDS. The only thing that they would associate AIDS with is death. Immediately you are diagnosed, every person would say, okay, now the person is about to die. Even if you look healthy, everyone would wish, oh my goodness. Now, the only thing that I have to do now is to prepare myself a will for my kids in case I die anytime tomorrow. All that thing. So it came in with all this evil thinking, with all this negative energy. People felt that they would have to die tomorrow. Doctors then decided to talk about it in a much more even worse way. Scientists, being scientists, they are very conservative themselves. Their thinking is not like, broad-minded. They can't think beyond what is there in the box. So each time they look at you, they look at you as this person that is going to die tomorrow. And the other thing that was even terrible is that some people that were diagnosed HIV positive, you'd find that at some point they would not even be, be pre and post counseled. The doctor would come in and just give you that information, and you would not even care whether or not what are the, after effects, after being on such a kind of a test and all that. So those are some of the challenges that we encountered. Otherwise, it was not welcomed in Africa. It is still, even today, I can see that there are quite a number of people in the communities that still find